Hey everyone, my name is Rebecca, and that's Oakley in the background. I am a science fiction writer in Savannah, Georgia, and he is a blue healer looking out the window. Today I am reading from Adelan Adventures, which is my goofy science fiction comedy, and it's written in novella form, so they're kind of short and punchy. If I were to describe Adelan Adventures, it would probably be if the Golden Girls got a copy of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. So I hope you guys enjoy. The salvage title courier ship was Frankie's first adult purchase, and as such, it hadn't been a very good one. Also, it wasn't a purchase, it was a lease. Xavier-class ships were minnows in the expanse of outer space, with hulls only as durable as their energy shields. What it lacked in size, power, and safety features, it made up for in crew quarters. Individual sleeping quarters with narrow beds, built-in shelving, and enough room to turn in a circle, at least for moderately sized species. Nerflands were a moderately sized species. Although Frankie was definitely on the smaller end of the species range, the species was humanoid in shape. Frankie imagined an elder Nerfland would shake her head at Frankie's perspective, lecturing that a Nerfland should think that humans looked Nerflanian. But Frankie had been adopted into an Earth family and had always considered her soft, scaled body the outlier rather than the norm. On Nerfla, the patina of her scales would declare her generational family and would communicate her emotions as part of a full, nuanced conversation. On Earth, humans were often offended by the broadcast expressions. It seemed emotions were meant to be hidden, only to be disclosed in precise amounts after a certain number of dinner dates. This, and other contentions, only furthered Frankie's overwhelming desire to strike it out on her own. She leased the ship, hired a crew, and set off, all on a shoestring budget, which meant accepting low-paying transport jobs just to reach the next planet in port, where surely they'd find better luck. Captain, we're approaching the cargo's final destination, remarked Lorav over her furred shoulder. As pilot, Lorav had often described their position in space and its relevancy to their assignment. It was accurate, although not always helpful. Besides Lorav was her sister, Paytav. Paytav was a weapons specialist. When Frankie had hired the pair of Rapcors, they had immediately unbolted the pilot's console and moved it over besides the weapons console, close enough so that they could sit shoulder to shoulder. As captain, Frankie hadn't approved of the remodel. Not only was it probably a violation of her lease agreement, it also blocked her view of the ship's windscreen that relayed pertinent information. But Frankie permitted it. There was really no separating the two specialists. Well, except for the doctor who had. Rapcords were born in groups, often connected. When a set of Rapcorian siblings reached maturity, they made a decision to remain physically connected or not. Lorath and Paytab had decided to separate, but not by much. The sisters looked similar, but not identical, like some human multiple births. They both had broad shoulders, square features, flat, smoky coats, and one antenna off to the side, as if typically there were two. Even looking around the stocky sisters at their consoles, Frankie couldn't miss the much larger ship, which filled up a significant portion of the windscreen as they drew closer to the planet. Is that supposed to be here? I don't think so. It's a shipping ship, and this planet isn't equipped to accept Class RHH cargo, said Paytav. Frankie tried to remember the acronym, but could only remember her own mnemonic, really honkin' heavy. So it couldn't have business at the Planet Race Transportation and Distribution Center. The post office, as the center was often called in verbal hurries, didn't service anything that large. It's moving to intercept, said Lorav, who occasionally reported on the position of other ships in space, in the position's relevancy to the courier ship's chance of survival. Railguns charging, said Paytav, which is something a weapons specialist would say. Of concern, though, was the fact that Xavier-class ships, like the one they sat in, didn't have railguns. Compy, send a message on the cargo ship's frequency, Frankie asked of the ship's computer software. What would you like the message to say? This is Farkinix. Frankie disliked her birth name, but the assumptions that others made when they heard it gave her an advantage in these situations. Of the Atalanta Empress, registered as Franklin and Sons couriers. We see you're preparing your weapons. Is it for us? Or maybe we're just in the way? I'm asking for a friend. Me. I'm asking for me. Unsurprisingly, she received no answer. Maybe the post office hired the ship for protection, suggested Laura F. That would be unusual. The airspace above the post office was usually a peaceful one, except for maybe small traffic jams, road rage, and a queue that could go on for weeks. Also, the anaphylactic bubble wrap incident of 2076. Still, it was worth a shot. Frankie tried the planet's traffic control. This is Farkinus of the Atalanta Empress. There seems to be a hostile ship obstructing our landing. Do you know anything about it? Laura maneuvered the Xavier-class ship to land on the planet, while trying not to provoke the gunners manning the other ship's Xavier-class ship-sized weapons. Flight, please be aware of. The crew didn't catch the end of the sentence from traffic control as their small ship shook with a small fury. Oh, Mevix, cursed Frankie. Her pink skin pulsed a bright coral in anger. Fire back, I guess. Paytav and Laura communicated with each other in a mixture of their home language and their triplet speak to coordinate a movement and weapons fire, disabling one of the bigger ship's mini railguns. Frankie had no idea what they had done to offend the large whale of a ship. They were both couriers of a sort, and not the sort in competition with each other. Their ships transported ships, biodomes, and satellites. Her Xavier-class ship delivered, stellar panels and tea towels. They took another hit. Damage report, asked Frankie to the person on her right, who had been uncharacteristically quiet during the larger ship's appearance and attack, as if waiting for a personal introduction. As second in command, Tark was stationed to Frankie's right, although lounged was probably a more apt description. When Frankie had met Tark in primary school, she hadn't seen any likeness to a lioness, as the humans had teased. Instead, she just saw someone that was different, like her. But while Frankie felt like an outsider, Tark used her uniqueness to climb to the top of the popularity ladder. She'd pull Frankie along with her clique, demanding she stop apologizing for her colors and helped her come out of her shell. Not literally, though. Frankie wasn't Cortanius. She had no shell from which to emerge. You can look at it just as well as I can, retorted Tark, her eyes flitting back and forth on her screen. They had become the best of friends, and just as quickly had gotten on each other's nerves. Still, Tark was the first crew member Frankie had hired when she got the ship whose damage report Frankie couldn't see, because Laura's square head was directly in the way. Frankie challenged this retort by looking around Tark's meaty leg, which was coated in a fine layer of fur and strategically propped onto her command console. Turned out, Tark couldn't see the damage report either, because some Earth reality TV show was playing on her screen. Can you do that in your free time? Asked Frankie. This is my free time. I don't have anything to do until you kill over. She ruffled her long mane. Today it was teased into a shaggy poof, like the singers in Tark's favorite retro metal rock bands, as if perhaps it was her duty to look pretty and wait. How about you give me the Mevix damage report? She shot back at Tark. We're Scadforge, she said simply, after glancing over its contents. Scadforge was an unprofessional phrase for screwed. Then, Tark promptly brought her show back up, not bothering to hide it anymore. On screen, humans in matching uniforms and utility belts chased the man without pants in between domiciles. See, this guy, Tark started to explain. Ground control, we are taking fire. Please advise, broadcast Frankie, using a professional phrase for what the skagforg. Sorry, we can't take any defensive measures. We've got better things to do, Flight. Better things to do than their job? Asked Frankie, staring down Tark through her dark goggles. Tark shrugged and batted her eyes underneath long black lashes. Frankie's stomach churned as Laura barrel rolled and Paytav rapidly fired, causing the tiniest inertial kickback, but still adding another axis to their motion. Their verbal communication had ended, and the sisters worked as one, leaving Frankie to guess which way she'd be jerked next. So it was a surprise when the ship started nosediving toward the post office at a speed which would not be sustainable once they met the ground. Her second in command, ground control, and pilot didn't seem invested in keeping them alive and well. Should she take the day off too? Sneak in a few Earthcat videos before they were shot out of the sky? Or help to steer the ship into something massive and unmovable? If it was a game of chicken her crew were playing, Frankie lost it as she shrieked, "Am I the only one trying to come out of this alive?" Laura didn't respond or change directions immediately, but Paytav began firing energy pulses into the ground. Paytav's handiwork created a trench with just enough room for Laura to pull up and run parallel to imminent destruction. Even with the trench, Frankie could feel their tail end kicking up dirt. A warning that landing gear had not been deployed flashed on the big screen. Forget the runway. The Atalant settled at the post office's front door, taking out a parking meter in the process. "Here we are," said Laura brightly, her toothy smile nearly wrapping around her square nose. Her eyes shined with pride. Frankie peeled her fingers off the armrests. Maybe having part of the windscreen blocked was a good thing. "You scared the captain," said her sister, who didn't need her empathic skills to come to that conclusion. Frankie's skin had turned from bright coral to a muted greenish pink. The ship above them stopped firing. Frankie assumed out of fear of hitting the post office they had parked so close to. Deciding not to cause an intercorporate incident, the ship took off with as few words as they'd spared during their attack. Frankie pressed the ship's intercom. "Brian, damage report?" Brian replied, his voice groggy, as if he was waking up from a nap. Frankie hoped that wasn't the case. "We've arrived." That wasn't a damage report. "Anything need to be repaired for next takeoff?" "Nah, you should be good." Frankie flicked her personal tablet to a map of the ship and saw his signal coming from his chambers. As a post office sanctioned mechanic and liaison, Brian did more liaising than anything else. And he didn't even do much of that. "Wow, that was a bumpy ride," came the voice of their cargo supervisor through the intercom. "It was like a pinball game back here." Laura and Paytav exchanged confused glances. Frankie didn't bother to explain. It was always more trouble than it was worth, especially since half the time she knew the meaning of the idiom, but not its origin. "Sorry about that, Gail. How's the cargo down there?" "The cargo? What about me? I'm an old lady. I could have broken a hip." That seemed unlikely. To counter the issues an 80-year-old widow from Earth might have, Gail had preemptively replaced many of her failing body parts with bionic devices. Besides replacing her pelvis and reinforcing her back with a titanium alloy, she'd also opted to replace her arms, which were withering with osteoporosis. The technology had opened up her post-retirement options, and she now worked as cargo supervisor and transporter of really heavy things. "Prepare the shipment for delivery," said Tark. "It was prepared until we crash landed," I've now got to sort it all out again. I think the determination of crash should take into account that we were being shot at. This landing was more of an evasive maneuver than anything else, defended Lorav over the speaker. Well, I don't blame the shooters one bit. I'd like to shoot you myself. If you guys keep mistreating me, I'll find one of those senior citizen cruise ships, drink Mai Tais on the deck in my hover chair, and visit the top 10 planets with a knitting theme, as judged by spaceseniors.com. Then, the only thing I'd have to sort is birthday cards for my grandkids. Should we notify your grandkids that you've crash landed? Asked Laura. No, I don't think that will be necessary. As far as Gail's family knew, she was already on one of those cruises. Gail kept up the charade by sending them postcards whenever their work landed them on a spaceseniors.com destination planet. She had even gone as far as doing video chats with the cruise deck and beach backdrops, sipping a Mai Tai. That part was true. She liked Mai Tais, and she did drink a lot of them. We'll be down to help you out, apologized Frankie, feeling bad that she hadn't announced to batten down the hatches. The postal official would be out with her paperwork any moment to meet with Brian. In fact, they were usually out by the time the ship landed. Probably didn't want to catch crossfire. Or an earful. I hope you guys enjoyed. That was the first chapter of Rats and Bolts, which is the first novella in Adeline Adventures. So if you want to know what happens at the post office, you can start at chapter 2 in Rats and Bolts. The book is 99 cents on Amazon, or you can read it for free with your Kindle Unlimited membership. If you'd like to see more of these videos and more about my life as an author, you can find me at patreon.com/rmhamrick. Please share this video with anyone that would like a laugh today, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.